If you've ever walked off a cruise ship and only then realized you were charged for something you shouldn't have paid, you're not alone. In my years of watching how cruise lines actually operate from the inside, I've seen the same billing mistakes cost passengers, an average of around $127 per cruise. And almost all of it happens in the first 12 hours on board, before most people have even unpacked. The worst part? 90% of passengers don't catch it until the final morning, when the lines at guest services stretch around the corner and nobody has time to fix anything. Welcome back. If you've been cruising for years, maybe decades, you'll want to hear this one carefully. I've spent a long time studying how the guest services side of cruise ships actually works, not from the passenger side of the counter, but from what former crew members have shared openly after leaving the industry. What I'm about to walk you through are 15 things that most cruisers never think to ask. Systems, policies, and workarounds that are built directly into how cruise lines operate. The staff who process these requests every single day know them by heart. The cruise lines just don't advertise them, and they only work if you know the exact words to use. I'll walk you through all 15, and I'll tell you right now, the one that surprises most experienced cruisers comes toward the end. Stay with me for that one. If this kind of practical, no-nonsense information is useful to you, tap the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. It genuinely helps. Now, let's get into it. We're going to start with the things that happen on day one, because that's where most of the money gets lost, and then move into the ones almost nobody thinks to ask about, including a few that will genuinely change how you feel about walking up to that guest services desk. The ones at the end are the most valuable, and one of them is a little controversial, so stay with me. Number 1, and this is the one I want you to remember above everything else on this list, the auto charge setting on your onboard account. When you link your credit card at check-in, most cruise lines, Royal Caribbean, Carnival, Norwegian, MSC, most of the major ones activate something called automatic billing by default. What that means is that every time your onboard balance reaches a certain threshold, somewhere around $100 to $500 depending on the line, they charge your card automatically while you're still spending. So you end up paying credit card interest on charges days before you've even seen your final bill. The cruise line defaults to this setting because it reduces chargebacks on their end. But guest services can turn it off. They just won't do it unless you ask. The moment you reach the check-in desk or the first time you stop by guest services on embarkation day, say this: "Can you set my account to settle only on the final morning?" That is the entire phrase. Most lines will do it. A few newer policies may have changed this, but it is always worth asking. This single request can save you from a billing situation that catches most passengers completely off guard. Number 2, your dinner seating is not guaranteed unless you paid for a guarantee. This is one that generated more frustration at guest services than almost anything else. When you book a cruise and request early dining or late dining, the word request in a cruise contract means exactly what it sounds like they'll try, but they're not promising anything. On the first night, hundreds of passengers show up to the dining room expecting the seating they asked for and discover they've been assigned a completely different time. Some people requested 5:30 and were given 8 o'clock. The fix is this: within the first 2 hours after you board, before you do almost anything else, go to guest services and ask politely whether any guaranteed seating slots have opened up due to cancellations. What you say is, "I know I only requested early dining, but if any guaranteed slots open up, I'd love to switch." Sometimes there's nothing available, but sometimes there is, and you get your preferred time without paying an upcharge. The critical detail here is timing. One former guest services manager described a couple who waited until day 3 to ask. By then, the dining room was locked in. There was nothing left to do. Number 3, check your onboard statement mid-cruise, not just on the last night. This is the habit that separates passengers who arrive at the final morning relaxed from the ones who are standing in a 300-person queue at 7 a.m., trying to dispute a $200 error while simultaneously packing their suitcase. What smart cruisers do is request a printed statement around day 3 and again around day 5. You can ask for one at guest services at any time. It takes about 90 seconds to print. Just walk up and say, "Can I get a printed account statement?" Don't overthink the phrasing. Catch errors while there's still time to deal with them calmly, not when you're stressed about your flight home. Number 4, the 48-hour window for cabin problems. If your cabin has an issue air conditioning that isn't working, noise from the deck above, a plumbing problem, you have roughly 48 hours to do something about it before your options shrink dramatically. After day 2, the inventory management system locks down. Cabins that were being held for operational reasons get assigned, and your leverage drops close to 0. If something is wrong, go to guest services promptly and say, "This issue is affecting our sleep. Is there availability to move us to a comparable cabin?" If the ship is genuinely full, there may be nothing available. But on most sailings, there are held cabins, and the only way to access them is to ask early. Now, before we go further, I want to pause for a second. Because what we've covered so far, the auto charge setting, the dining request, the mid-cruise statement, the cabin window, these are exactly the kinds of things that are just the beginning of a much longer conversation about how to cruise smart. If you want all of this in one place, the exact phrases, the timing, the fees to watch for, the upgrades that actually make sense for people our age, I've put together a complete reference guide called the Seasoned Cruiser's Complete Pack. It covers what this video can only scratch the surface of. The link is in the description below, or you can scan the code on your screen right now. And speaking of things, the cruise line definitely won't tell you what's coming next is one I've never heard discussed in any brochure. Number 5. Prepaid gratuities can be partially refunded if service was genuinely poor, but only if you report the problem while still on board. Cruise lines don't advertise this because they'd rather you not know it's possible, but guest services processes these requests regularly. The key is documentation in real time. If your cabin steward hasn't cleaned your room for 2 days, go to guest services on day 3, not day 7. Report it, get it resolved, and then at the end of the cruise, you can request a partial gratuity adjustment. A credit of around $60 has been approved in documented cases like this. If you wait until the cruise is over and write a complaint letter afterward, you'll receive a form response. Nothing more. Number 6. Cabin location and noise. This is one of those things that sounds obvious until you're lying awake at 5:45 in the morning listening to chairs scraping across the buffet floor directly above your head. Based on what experienced crew members describe, there are certain spots on every ship to avoid. Anything directly below the buffet chair dragging starts before 6 a.m. Anything directly above the main theater base from the shows runs until midnight. Anything close to crew work areas or laundries, those run around the clock. The sweet spot is midship, sandwiched between 2 other passenger decks and at least 3 cabin doors away from elevators or stairwells. Before you book, call the cruise line and ask, "Can you tell me what's directly above and below this cabin number?" They will tell you. It's a 30-second question that can make or break a week of sleep. Number 7, the drink package math. This one is a bit debated, but here's my honest take. Cruise lines advertise drink packages, Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, Norwegian, Princess, all have versions of this, and the break-even calculation they present leaves out one important number: the service charge. Most lines add an 18 to 20% gratuity on top of every drink, and that charge is included whether you pay per drink or use a package. When you factor that in, if a package costs around $65 a day and individual drinks average around $12, you need to consume roughly 6.5 drinks every single day to break even. That's around 45 drinks over a 7-night cruise. For some people, the package absolutely makes sense. For many of us, paying as you go comes out cheaper. When they try to upsell you at the beverage desk, a simple phrase works well. "I appreciate the offer, but I've done the math based on my own drinking habits and I'd rather not." No argument needed. This is the one I'd never skip, and it's something almost no one thinks to ask. Number 8, post-embarkation cabin upgrades. If the ship is not completely full, and many sailings do have unsold cabins, you can request an upgrade after the first night, and the price drops significantly. Cruise lines would rather sell a balcony cabin at a steep discount than sail with it empty. Reports from former crew describe balcony cabins going for somewhere between $200 and $300, total for an entire cruise cabins that would have cost over $1,000 if booked in advance. The best time to ask is the morning of day 2, when the inventory system updates and guest services knows exactly what's available. Walk up and say, "I know we're already on board, but if there are any unsold balcony cabins, I'd be interested in upgrading. What's available?" Sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes you save several $100s. It costs you nothing to ask. Number 9, Wi-Fi refunds. If your internet package is not working, constant dropouts, speed's so slow you can't load a page, connection that keeps failing, you can request a credit or refund. Unlike most onboard services, internet connectivity has a measurable standard. It either works or it doesn't. Guest services can apply a credit to your account. What you say is, "I purchased the premium Wi-Fi package, but I haven't been able to hold a connection for more than 5 minutes at a time. I've restarted my device multiple times. Can you look into a refund?" This only works if the problem is genuine. But if it is genuine, it's a legitimate ask, and it gets processed regularly. Have you ever found yourself in a situation on a cruise where you knew something wasn't right but didn't know what to say or who to ask? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one of them, and I genuinely like to know what's come up for you. Number 10. Medical charges on board are not locked in the way hospital bills are. If you visit the ship's medical center and pay $150 for what amounted to a 5-minute consultation and a bandage, guest services has the authority to adjust those charges if the treatment was genuinely minimal and your concern is reasonable. This doesn't apply to serious medical events, and of course, for anything health-related, you should always check with your doctor before and during your travels. But for minor treatments where the charge feels entirely disproportionate, it is worth walking to guest services and saying, "I understand there's a charge, but this was a 5-minute visit for a bandage. Is there any flexibility?" It won't always work, but it works more often than people expect. Number 11, late luggage compensation. Most cruise lines have a policy that luggage will be delivered to your cabin by a certain time on embarkation day, usually somewhere between 4 and 6 in the evening. If your bags arrive significantly later than that, you can request onboard credit as compensation. Most passengers have no idea this policy exists. Credits in the range of $50 to $100 have been issued for documented late deliveries. What you say is, "My luggage wasn't delivered until much later than your stated policy. I'd like to request compensation for the late delivery." Where do you find the policy? It's in the guest services directory in your cabin, that small booklet almost nobody reads. It's worth flipping through on day 1. Number 12, last, morning room service. On the final morning of a cruise, most passengers are stressed, the buffet is packed, and people are standing in line holding coffee cups and carry-on bags. What a lot of cruisers don't realize is that room service is still available on disembarkation morning on many lines, and it's often complimentary. You can have coffee and pastries brought to your cabin, pack at your own pace, and leave when you're ready without the buffet chaos. When you call, ask, "I'd like to order breakfast for our last morning. What complimentary options are included?" Some lines have eliminated free room service entirely, but many still offer it. You won't know unless you ask. Number 13, the shopping recommendation maps in your cabin. Those glossy port guides with the highlighted jewelry stores and recommended shops. Here's what most passengers don't know. Those stores pay a commission to the cruise line to appear on that list. That's not a rumor, it's how the model works. Guest services on many ships receive complaints about these stores' regularly inflated prices, high-pressure tactics, quality that doesn't match what was presented. Staff can't warn passengers officially because of the vendor contracts. So take the recommendation maps for what they are: paid advertising, not an endorsement. Shop at stores you already know and trust, avoid high-pressure jewelry operations, and always pay with a credit card so you have recourse if something goes wrong. Number 14, photo package refunds within 24 hours. If you purchase a photo package on board and then review the images and find that most are blurry, unflattering, or simply not what you expected, you can request a refund, but only within 24 hours of purchase. The photography department counts on impulse buying and on passengers not reviewing the images carefully until after the return window closes. If you catch it in time, walk up and say, "I purchased this package a few hours ago, and now that I've reviewed the photos, most of them are out of focus. I'd like to request a refund." After 24 hours, that window is closed. This is one where timing is everything. And number 15, this is the one I want you to sit with for a moment because it ties everything else together. When you walk up to the guest services desk, the person behind that counter can see your entire account, your booking history, your loyalty status, your previous complaints, your onboard spending, your restaurant and excursion reservations, and notes from previous cruises. If you are a loyal passenger, if you have never made unreasonable demands before, if you are polite and specific about what you're asking, that staff member has the discretion to help you in ways that are not listed anywhere. A complimentary specialty restaurant reservation, a cabin change, a service recovery credit. That discretion exists. But it disappears if you are rude, if you have a pattern of complaints that look like gaming the system, or if you've been aggressive in the past. Former crew members described the difference clearly. A passenger who had sailed 15 times, never complained, always polite, came to the desk with a simple reservation mix-up. Staff moved mountains for her because her record showed she deserved it. Another passenger who came in shouting on day 1 about a cabin that was identical to what he booked, staff helped him within the rules, but nothing beyond. The system has flexibility. The staff want to use it in your favor. Give them a reason to. Now, here's what I want you to actually do with this. You don't need to memorize all 15. Pick the 2 or 3 that matter most for your next sailing and focus there. The auto charge phrase at check-in, the mid-cruise statement on day 3, the cabin upgrade question on the morning of day 2. Those 3 alone, on a single sailing, could easily save you $100 or more and a significant amount of frustration. And once you've done it once, it becomes second nature. This isn't about finding loopholes or trying to outsmart the cruise line. The flexibility is built into the system deliberately. Guest services staff process these requests every day. They just don't go out of their way to tell you the requests are available. Now you know they are. I'm curious, have you ever walked off a cruise and discovered a charge you shouldn't have paid, or a service that was available but nobody told you about? That's exactly the kind of thing I want to hear about. Drop it in the comments below. You might help someone else going through the same thing. Next time, I'm covering the specific phrases that have gotten passengers cabin upgrades they technically weren't entitled to. A few of them will genuinely surprise you, especially if you've been sailing for a while. Subscribe so you don't miss it. If this was useful, hit the like button. It really does make a difference for this channel. And if you want the complete reference version of everything we talked about today, the phrases, the timing, the fees to watch for, it's all in the Seasoned Cruisers Complete Pack. The link is in the description below. Smooth seas, and I'll see you next time.